So students, all of you have come. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Yes,
Very
sir.
good morning.
Good
So
morning,
welcome
sir.
to all of you in today's class. Uh, Today I am going to discuss various problems related with the control statements. So should I start now?
So wait for 2-3 minutes.
So I am going to start the class and let the people join. Uh, in today's class, I will discuss various problems related with the control statements. In previous class, there was a discussion on conditional statements and one looping statement, that is for loop. I told you in the previous class that as it is always assumed that the execution of programs are always sequential, and if you are going to apply some condition or apply some logic, for example, if you want to iterate a particular set of statements for some specified number of times, in that case, looping statements may be required. Or if you are going to apply some conditions, in that way also the flow of execution will change. The statements used to change the flow of execution of program are known as control statements. I told you condition statements, looping statements, then jump statements, and apart from that, unconditional jump statement in which continue, break, and return statement. Now, we will start with the first problem. Here, there is a series 1 plus 1 by 2 slash 1 by n. In this, you have to compute the sum of this series up to nth term. In the previous class, I told you that whenever you are writing a program, always you must give the user input. So here you have to compute the sum up to the nth term. Then you will have to give the value of n by the user up to what term he or she wants to compute the sum of the given series. In this program, import java.io.start, right? We are importing a package, input output package. In the previous class, I told you that there is one package that is by default imported. Can you name that package? Anyone? Anyone? Java.lang. There is no need to import the package java.lang. Automatically, for example, java.lang.string or java.lang.system, they are automatically imported. There is no need to import specifically java.lang.star. Here, system, this is the class of java.lang package. String, this is the class of java.lang package, and it's clear that we are not importing java.lang here. That is by default importing into your program. So you can say there is one package java.lang.star which automatically inherits in your program. right? Examples are your system class, string class, etc. In this program, we have made a class sum, right? We have used the Hungarian notation. First character of the class name is in caps. Here, public static void main string args throws IO exception. This main function is throwing IO exception. Exceptions are raised at the runtime. Whenever you execute your program, if there is any problem in a runtime error in your program, that is, they are known as exceptions. If input output related exceptions are there, in that case, if any problem, then this main function will throw IO exception, and this IO exception is a class which is stored in this IO package. Now, we have to compute the sum of the series up to n term. That's why we have taken a variable n, which is of type integer. We are telling the compiler that n is a variable of type integer. Here, sum and I both are variables, and the type of both these two variables of float. It means that both will take 8 byte of storage. Here n is of type integer. In Java, it will take 4 byte of storage. System.out.println. Enter the value of n. So whenever you will execute, the statement will be printed. Enter the value of n. Every statement will be terminated by semicolon. Here, I am using another technique for user input. Now, in the last class, we were using the scanner class. Here, we are going to use buffered reader. Buffered reader is a class which is used for character input. Always it is dealt with the character input. So here OB is an object of type buffered reader. OB is an object of type buffer reader. Through this new operator, we dynamically creating a buffer of input for input text. Through buffered reader, we are creating a buffer for text input. Here we are embedding new input stream reader. New input stream reader is another class which always read bytes in terms of bytes. So here, am I audible now? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Audible.
sir.
Sir.
Yes. System.in. Whatever you will enter from the keyboard, that will be stored into the variable system.in. Now, computer will convert after the compilation, that will be converted into byte code. That byte code will be read by this input stream reader, right? And this buffered reader, input stream reader, is basically a bridge, right, between the character input and byte input. So this input stream reader will read the byte, and this buffered reader will create a buffer for character input, and that byte will be converted into character, right? And that will be stored in this object OB. I am repeating again. Here, system.in, whatever you are typing through the keyboard, that will be in the byte code. This input stream reader will read that byte code. Basically, this input stream reader is a bridge, is an interface between the buffered reader and byte code. This input stream reader, this buffered reader will create a buffer of text input, and whatever the input stream reader will read the byte, that will be stored in a buffer, and that value will be stored in this object OB. I think explanation is clear to you. After that, since buffered reader deals with the character input, that's why OB dot read line. Read line, the entire line will be read by the object, and this read line function method is defined in buffered reader class. OB dot read line, the type of that is string. Now, since we have to compute the sum of this series up to nth term, so that is of type integer. That's why we are using integer dot parse int, and we are passing this argument str. What is this integer here? Integer is a class here, and in the previous class I told you that wrapper class. What is the need of wrapper classes? In the previous class I told you that there are predefined data types: integer, float, double, byte, short, long, boolean, various predefined data types. I also told you that Java always deals with the objects. Whenever you are going to do the programming in Java, always that is in terms of objects. Since integer, float, characters are predefined types, so whenever you will operate or whenever you are going to create any object that is user defined, so type should also be user defined. So for that, these wrapper classes are used. Integer is a wrapper class, float is a wrapper class, double is a wrapper class. These are the various wrapper classes. That is the use of wrapper classes, because we are having in Java, we are having the predefined types, and if we are manipulating everything in terms of objects, and since objects are user defined, so data type should also be user defined. So for that, equivalent to int, float, predefined types, we have created these wrapper classes. So integer is a wrapper class. In the integer wrapper class, there is a method parse int, which will convert this string, because in buffered reader, whatever the value you are storing, the type of that value is of character. That's why this string value will be converted into through parse int method into integer, and that will be stored into this variable n. Now the logic part comes into the picture. We will take a for loop. Since in this series we are starting the value from 1 up to n, right? So for I is equal to 1, sum equal to sum plus 1 by I. Initial value of sum is 0, 1 upon 1. So the value of sum will be 1. Then the value of I will be increased now 2. It will check the condition whether 2 is less or equal to n. For example, you have given the value of n is 10 here, right? So this loop will execute between 1 and 10, right? So 1 plus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3 up to 1 by 10, the sum value will be printed here. This is the entire explanation of this program. So many things came out of this program. First of all, I told you that what are the default packages which imported. There is only one package, java.lang, in which in every program we will use this system class, this string class. They are the part of java.lang package. Here we have imported java.io package. And why we have imported it? For the input output exceptions, because if there is any problem in this program at the time of at the runtime, then input output related problem, runtime problem, then it will throw the input output exceptions. For that we have imported the java.io.star. Then I told you about the buffered reader and input stream reader. That is the another way to give input, user input. Now I told you about the wrapper classes in which different methods are there. In integer wrapper class, there is a method parseInt. In the same manner, for the float wrapper class, there is a parse float. For the double wrapper class, there is a method parse double, etc. Right? Now, this is the another problem. You are having a series 1 minus 2 plus 3 minus 4 plus 5 minus 6, so on, up to the nth term. In the previous class, some students was asking how to create the logic. So, the creation of logic is very important. First of all, you will create logic. So what is the logic here in this series? 1 minus 2 plus 3 minus 4 plus 5 minus 6, so on. Whatever are the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, they will be added in this series. And all the even numbers 2, 4, 6, they are in minus term. That's why they will be added and that will be subtracted from the sum of the odd numbers. 1 minus 2 plus 3 minus 2. You can make the logic that 1 plus 3 plus 5, so on, minus bracket 2 plus 4 plus 6. It means that sum of odd numbers minus sum of even number. This must be your logic. Once logic is clear, then you have to find out up to what term you have to calculate the sum of this series. So for that, you up to nth term, so you will have to give the user input for n using the buffer reader. So now the problem is simple. You have created a class. You will have to create a class sum. Here import java.io.star package. You have imported public static void main string args. Why this public is used? Anybody? This is access modifier. If we will not use public here, what will happen? Anyone? What happened? No response this time. Hello? This is the access modifier because this main function is called by the operating system. That's why and since this is the first statement to be executed, so we have used this public. Otherwise, the operating system will not call whenever you will write java dot some from the command line, then this function will not call. That's why we have used public. Why we have used static here? Anybody? Because
Sir, it can be used globally.
static.
Yes, sir.
No, I told you in the previous class that if you are prefixing static keywords with any function, it means that you can invoke that function without using any object. Without using any object. Because
Okay.
in this class, we are not creating any object. So how from the command prompt this main function will be called? This will not be called until and unless it's static. This is the one beautiful use of static keyword in Java programming language. If without object you want to call any function, then you will have to prefix that main function with the static key. Right? Another use of static in Java is that they are used for the class variables. For example, in any class, the variable is of type static. It means that that is shareable among the all the objects. These are the two uses of static. So here the use of static is first one. Without creating any object, you are calling the main function. What is the use of this void? Anyone? It means that this main function is not returning any value. Okay. Here string args. These are the array of arguments of type string object you are passing from the command line. Close IO exception. In every program, these statements are common. Now, n is a variable. Through this variable, you will define up to what term you have to calculate the sum. Here, I, sum1, sum2. These are the variables. Because it's evident from this series that if the sum of the odd numbers are sum1 and some of the even numbers are sum2, so sum1 minus sum2 will be stored into the sum. That's why we have taken three variables: sum, sum1, sum2. Right? And type of these variables are float. It means that they will consume 8 bytes of storage. Now system.out.println, there is a message. Println will print the statement on the screen. Here enter the value of n. Up to what term you want to calculate the sum. Here we are giving user input for n, OB of type buffered reader, right? Under this buffered reader, an input stream reader is encapsulated. You are providing the value into the system.in that is of the character type that will be stored into this object str of type string. Now integer.parseInt, whatever the value you have stored that is of type character. Now through parseInt method you are converting that into integer, that is the value of n. Now logic starts. For I is equal to 1, the loop will start. So here, if the I modulus 2 is equal to 0, if that is divisible by 2 and remainder is 0, then sum1 is equal to sum1 plus 1. This set of statement will be executed. If the value of I is iterator, I is what? I is here iterator. This is called iterator. This I variable is used for iteration purposes. So here, if else, if that remainder is not 0, then event terms will be summed up, and this is the final, your whatever the value, sum value stored into the sum2 and stored into the sum1, sum2 minus sum1, that will be the value of this entire series, and that will be stored into some variable. And now through system.out.println method, you will print that value of sum on the screen. This plus, as I already told you, that is a concatenating operator, right? Which is concatenating your message, sum of the series, each plus whatever the value of sum. So to execute this program, first of all, you will choose a editor, NetBeans or Notepad or TextPad or Eclipse. On that editor you will write, you will give the name to the file, to that class in which the main function is there. So the name of the file will be sum.java. On the command prompt you will write javac sum.java. That will be converted into bytecode if there is no error. Then using the Java command you will execute it, and on the result will be printed like this: sum of the series is sum, whatever the sum value. It's clear to all of you? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Here, in this example, we are entering an integer value which consists of more than one digit. Whatever the value you are entering, you have to print that value in reverse order. For example, if you have entered 1, 2, 3, so it should print 3, 2, 1. This is the program. What should be the logic behind this? The logic could be that whatever the integer value is given to you, for example, 1, 2, 3. So if you divide 1, 2, 3 by 10, whatever is the remainder, if you divide 1, 2, 3 value with 10, the remainder is 3. You will print that remainder value. Now again you will take that quotient and divide it by 10. Right? Whatever is the value, then again you will divide by 10 and you will print the remainder value. Then 2, then 1. So in this manner, in reverse order, you can print the elements. So if the input is 1, 2, 3, it will print the 3, 2, 1. So again, we have imported java.io.star. There is a class reverse. So the name of the file will be rev.java. Public static void main throws IO exception, as I stated earlier. This is int 10. Again, user input. These are the variables I, X, and this is reverse variable. These three variables are there, which is of type integer, a float. Now, first of all, whenever you will execute the program, enter the value of n. Your screen will ask this value, and so you can input any value. The value of n will come through these three statements where you have created object OB of buffer reader, that is of type character. Whatever the value is stored, then through integer wrapper class you are converting it into integer, that is n. Now this is a while loop. In the last class I told you about the for loop. There is another looping statement that is known as while statement. The syntax of the while is while expression, then curly braces. This while statement will execute the set of statements within the curly braces again and again till the condition satisfies in expression. Here the statement is written while n is not equal to 0. It means this loop will continue in execution until and unless the n value of n is 0. Not n is 0. जब तक n की वैल्यू 0 नहीं होगी तब तक ये लूप चलेगा. जब तक ये ट्रू रहेगा, whenever up to what point the value of this expression will be true, this set of statements will continue to be executed. That's why we have used while expression. Whatever the value, suppose you have entered 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 not equal to 0, that is true, then this set of statements will be executed. System.out.print. This 1, 2, 3 will be divided with 10. Since we have used the modulus operator, so it will print the remainder value. Why I have used the print method here, not println, because you have to print the values in reverse order in the same line. That's why I have used here print method. System.out.print and modulus 10, it will print 3 if you are giving the value 1, 2, 3. Now that 1, 2, 3 will be divided by 10. What is the quotient value? 1, 2. Again, now the value of n is 1, 2. It means 1, 2 is not equal to 0. True. Then system.out 1, 2 modulus operator 10. Then 2 value will be printed. Now 1, 2 divided by 10. The value of n is 1. 1 is not equal to 0, system dot out dot println, and modulus 10, that will be 1. Right? Now the code 0, this condition is false, so the value will be printed 3, 2, 1, like this. So here the same set of statements are executing again and again depending on the condition. These are executing again and again till the condition is true. Whenever the condition will false, you will come out of this. So in this way you can make the logic. This is all about the while loop. So whatever the problems you can solve using the for loop, you can solve using the while loop also. Right? Here, there is another example. In this example, you have to calculate the factor of a number. Right? And it's evident that every program has been made using the user input. So you have to calculate the factor of a number. Suppose 20 number is there. You will ask the user the value of which you want to calculate the factor. So in that case, suppose I have entered the value n is equal to 20. What are the numbers that will be divisible by 20? There will be the factor. For example, 1, then 2, 4, 5, 10, 20. These are the various factors of that particular given number. Now you have to develop a logic to write this program for much larger number. So import java.io.star package class factor. We have given the name to the class. Here is the main function. Same. Now we are declaring for variables I and j and temp. Two variables I and sum of float. Here I will be integer. This I will not be float here. That is mistake by mistaken written here. System.out.println, enter the value of n whose factor is to be find out. Here you will get the value from the user of n. What should be the value? Here, suppose you have entered 20, the value of n will be 20. System.out.println, the factors are. This statement will be printed on the screen. Here the for loop where the logic is going on. You have used the for loop here where the iterator I value is initialized with 1. So this condition will be checked. 1 is less or equal to 20 if 1 modulus I is equal to 0. If you will divide the value of 20 divided by 1, if modulus is 0, you will assign the value of that into 10. Value of that into 10. Gitaji in the classroom. I will call you later. Right? So, in this way, by using this logic, the factors will come. Then GCD of two numbers, greatest common divisor of two numbers. Another example. Here. In this example, there is a package already stated. There are two classes, class GCD1 and class GCD. What should be the name of the file? Anyone? What would be the name of the file? Who will answer?
GCD.
Why GCD? because main function is there, right? So if more than one
Yes,
classes are
sir.
given, more than one classes are given, then you will name the file with the class which is having the main function. Good. Last GCD, here the main function which is throwing IO exception. Here we have created n. N is an object. Now there is another class GCD1 which is computing the GCD value of two numbers. We have created object of that particular class, right? And GCD1 n is an object of type GCD1 class. New, through new operator you are allocating memory to this object n GCD1. This is the name of the constructor, right? What is the use of in the previous class? I told you that what is the constructor? Constructors are used to initialize the value of objects. Whenever you are creating any object in Java, at that time a constructor will be called to initialize the value of variables of objects. In Java, if you are not giving any constructor, so implicit constructor will be called, right? So here GCD1 constructor will be called and the value of n will be initialized with that. Here again we are giving user input to off because we have to calculate the GCD of two numbers. So we are taking both the numbers from user. We are taking both the numbers from users. Right? So here one is x1 variable of type integer, integer dot parseInt, and another variable is x2. That is also of integer. The same method is there. You will create a buffered reader and OB, then str1 OB dot read line, x1 integer dot print str1, then str2 OB dot read line, x2 integer dot parseInt, second value will be printed. Now here you are calling n dot gcdf x1 comma x2. Whatever the value you have given input x1 user input x1 and x2, that will be passed in this number. In Python you know that how to call the function. Here we are calling the function n is an object of this class, n dot gcd f. This is the name of the function. This function is defined within class GCD1. You are passing these two arguments x1, x2. These x1, x2 arguments will pass, and this GCDF is defined within this class GCD1. So here int GCDF, whatever the value of x1, x2, that will be copied to T1, T2. I told you that in Java, whenever you are calling any function, in Python also, whenever I had defined the functions, I told you that in two ways you can pass the values to function. Call by value and call by reference. Here also, whenever you are passing simple values to the function as an argument, always you will use the call by value technique. Whenever you are passing object as an argument to a function, in that way you will use the call by reference. So parameter passing techniques are two. One is call by value and another one is call by reference. Whenever you are passing, here the value of x1 and x2 is predefined. They are of type integer. These two values are being passed. So In call by value, I told you that the copy of this x1 will be passed to this table. Here x2, in x2 also the copy of this x2 will be passed to t2. What do you mean by copy? It means that for x1, whenever you have created a variable x1, a memory will be allocated for that. For x2, the memory will be allocated for that. But whenever you are passing the arguments from this function, sorry, arguments from this function is known as, there are two types of function, calling function and called function. So here, this is the calling function. You are calling the function. Through this, you are passing two predefined types. Here, this is the called function. The control will go to here. Another copy of for memory of for T1 will be created. For T2 of type integer will be created. In that copy, the value of x1 will be copied. Right? And in call by value, whenever you will come out of this loop, this function, the value assigned to T1 and T2 will be vanished. Why vanished? Because separate memory is allocated for T1 and T2. They are not actual memory of x1 and x2. There is a copy of x1 and x2 which are stored in T1 and T2. Now this is the logic of for the factor. Here you have declared a variable R of type integer if T2 modulus T1. Whatever the number you have given, user value to T2, if modulus T1, if the value of that is remainder is 0, the first value will be returned. T1 will be returned. Otherwise, what will happen if T2 modulus T1, T2 is divided by T1 and if the remainder value is not 0, then whatever the value of T1 will be assigned to T2 and the value of R will be T1 and return GCD T1 T2 and whatever the value of T1 T2 will be there, that will be returned to x1 x2 and that value will be printed. So this is the logic for this GCD of two numbers, and here the main thing is I have discussed how to call a function. So here we are passing predefined types because you know what is the syntax of the function. What is the function? Function is a block of statement which is used to execute a coherent set of statements, right? So this is the GCD function, and here we are passing two arguments, and they are, since they are predefined types, then we are passing calling by value. Whenever you will pass any variable or variable as an argument in a function by value, in that case, whatever the value computed within the function, once you will come out of that function, the value will be vanished, and whatever is the original value of x1 and x2, that will be there, right? So this is the example of call by value. Whenever you are passing any object, any object, any predefined data type as an argument. This is the Fibonacci series. Logic is almost clear to all of you because you have done it earlier also. Previous to previous, if two numbers, a series is there, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus like this, means the sum of previous to previous term plus previous term will be the next term, right? So here we have created the logic like this. Initial three statements are same. Import java.io.star class Fibonacci. Public static void main throws IO exception. Here three variables are there. F first value, then second value. The first value is initialized with 0. Second value is initialized with 1. Because what is the Fibonacci series? 0, 1, then 1, then 2, then 3, like this. So first value, second value is 1, third value is initialized with 0, and two variables I and j are used here. All of them are of type integer. It means they will take the 4 bytes of storage. Here we have created an object OB, which is of type buffered reader. Now we have given user input to N. Up to what term you have to print the Fibonacci series. So here the logic says that 0 and 1. So F is initialized with value 0, then that will be printed to the screen. System out println. Second statement, that is 1. First and second statement is printed. Value of Fibonacci series are printed 0 and 1. After that, now this loop will start from I is equal to 3. Right? 3 is less or equal to, this loop will continue up to 3 is less or equal to n. Whatever is the value of n, किस term तक आपको करना है? 4 terms, 5 terms. So now, if I the value of I is 3, so this is the value of t will be third value will be first value plus second value. The sum value will be stored into t, right? Then the value of second will be initialized to first, and the value of third will be initialized to second, right? Then I will be incremented, or then that condition will be checked. Then again this set of statement will be executed, and the value will be printed. In this fashion, this loop will continue till the condition is satisfied, and this is the logic of Fibonacci series. The major logic is that the sum of first and second term will be the next term. Whenever you are writing the program, please take care of this thing, that whatever the value you are giving, name you are giving to your variables, that should be understandable. For example, here we have given f, it means it is reflecting to the first value, s is reflecting to the second value, t is reflecting to the third value. So in this manner, you should give the name to your variable so that the program is clearly understood, right? In this program, we are using another looping statement, that is do while. We have seen the for loop. Now we are while loop. Now we are going to do while loop. What is the difference between the do while and while loop? What was the syntax of while loop? While expression, then set of statements. It means that the execution of set of statements will be dependent on the expression value. The set of statements will be executed till the condition satisfied. In do while, first the syntax is do, set of statements, then expression. The expression value will be last. Whenever the control will go to the do statement, the statement will be executed, then expression will be checked. So here, condition is being checked at the last. The expression value is being checked at the last. So at least for one time, the loop will be executed in do while. While in the case of while, the condition is checked initially. If the condition is false, immediately you will come out of the while loop. But in do while, whether condition is true or false, since that is evaluated after the execution of the statement, so at least for one time, the set of statement will be executed. So let's see with the example. I've taken a very simple example of this. Here, import java.io.star class name, do while, public static void main, string args, throws IO exception. The same statements. In every program you will write. N is of type integer, enter the value of n. This statement will be printed on the screen whenever you are going to execute. Here we are giving user input value to n. Right? Now do statement. The execution of loop is start now. System.out.print. Suppose I have given the value of n is 1. So here the value will be printed 1, then 1 plus plus. Now the value of 1 will be increased. Next value will be printed on the next line. Then condition will be checked. 1 is less than 20. Right? So 1 is less than 20, that's true. Then again do statement will start. Then value of n is 2. Again 2 will be increased. Next statement will be printed on the next line while 3 is less than 20. True, then do. So here, first time the expression is not evaluated. At least for one time this statement will be executed. This is the difference between the do while and while loop. It's clear to all? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, there are two statements, break and continue. What is the difference between the break and continue? In Python also, you have studied about it. If break statement is used in switch statement, any conditional statement, or in looping or in functions, in that case, you will, when if break statement is there, immediately you will come out of the loop or your function or conditional statement. That is the use of break. Then continue statement. Continue statement is used when if you are using any looping statement, and in that looping statement, for any iteration of that loop, if you don't want to execute the statement and you want to move over to next iteration, in that case, continue statement is useful. Again, I am repeating that. In loops, you always use the iterators, and always you increase the value through iterator. For example, I is equal to 1, I less or equal to n, I plus plus. So I is a iterator. So for each and every iterator, the set of statements will be executed. If you want that for some iteration, the set of statements should not be executed, so by using the continue statement, you can do this. This is the application of continue statement. So I am taking one example, and in that example using both the statements break and continue. Here I have created a class, public class name, public static void main, string args. Here I have taken an array of values. So in Java, in this way, you will initialize the values of arrays, and the name of the array is n. I also told you that you can write in both way. Int n, and this big bracket will be after this n. There will not be any error. Here n is an array of type integer. It means this array will have all the value of integer types, and there are 5 values. This is content. Always the value of int array will be accessed through its indexes, and index is always start from 0. What is the value of n0? 50. The value of n1 is 60. The value of n2 is 70. The value of n3 is 80. Like this, you can access the value. I am using here the variant of for loop for int x colon n. X is a iterator, and that iterator is being applied on array n. Right? If x is equal to 70, what is the initial value of x? 50. 50 is not equal to 70, false. So system.out.print statement will be printed. Here the 50 value will be printed. Now you will go to the next line. Now the value of x is 60. X is equal to 60, false. Again 60 will be printed. Next line. Now the value of x is 70, break. Immediately you will come out of this if, and the output will be only two value, 50 and 60. This is the use of break. You can use the break statement within the if, within the for loop, within the while loop, where you want to. If iterators are there, and you don't want to execute all the iterators of that loop, then you can come out of that. This is the continue statement. In this, I have taken the same example in continue. Public class T. Public static void main string args. Here again an array is taken which is having the value this. For int x colon n. This is the variant of for loop. Another way, whenever you are using array, so you can write the for loop like this. For iterator colon array. Here, what is the value of initial value of x? 50. If x is equal to 50, false, system.out.print 50 will be printed. Then now the value of x is 60, again false, system.out.print will be printed. The value is 60. When the value of x is 70 here, then continue. It means this set of statement will not be executed. Now immediately the value of x, next value will be taken 80. If x is equal to 80, false, system.out.print. What would be output in this way? 50, 60, 80, 90.
80, 90.
70 will not be printed. So iteration for 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you are omitting the execution of third index, so by using the continue statement here, you can omit the execution of this statement. Another control statement is return statement, and return statement is always used in the functions, methods. Whenever in Java, we will not use the term function, always we will use the term methods, right? So return statement is always used in methods, and any statement within the method written after return statement will not be executed. Return is the last statement in any method whenever you are writing program. So three statements are there. Unconditional jump statements are break, continue, and return. So I am again repeating. One is conditional, if, else, switch statement, if, else, elif statement, then looping statement, for loop, do loop, while loop, for, while, and while loop. Then unconditional jump statements are break, continue, and return. So these are the control statements you use to change the flow of execution of your program. Now, I am taking another example of matrices in which I am going to use the two-dimensional arrays. In this program, the name of the program is matrix calculation. That consists of two words. The first character of first word is in caps. Second character of first word is second word is in caps. Matrix cal. We have used the Hungarian notation. In this program, I am performing four operations. One is addition of two matrices. Another one is multiplication of two matrices. Third one is transpose of a matrices. And fourth one is display the value of matrix. The four functions I am using. So for that, we will create a menu program. We will do such type of programs using the by creating the menu. Scroll down. There is a call. क्लास में हूँ अभी करूँगा क्लास में तो first I will go to the last part of this program, which is the main function. Here, this is the main function. Class matrix. Main function is in this class, public static void main. So the name of the program will be matrix.java. Here, I am creating a menu. System.out.println, enter 1 for addition, enter 2 for multiplication, 3 for transpose, 4 for display. Enter choice, and we are asking the choice from the user using the buffered reader, right? 1, 2, or 3, or 4. Switch statement is there. Whatever the value of n choice will be there, that will be matched. Accordingly, these case statements will be executed. If you will enter choice 1, then matrix addition program will be called. So here I have created an object of type add, which is of type matrix calculation class. Then I am calling the function addition defined within this matrix calendar class, calculation class, add dot addition. The value of addition will be addition of two matrices will be printed out. Then we are using the break statement. It is matched through break statement. After computing the addition of two matrices, you will come out of the program. If choice is 2, then multiplication, choice is 3, then transpose will be executed, 4, then display will be executed. Otherwise, default will be executed, enter. It will prompt you by giving the message that enter valid choice. So in this way, any program, if that program is performing 4 or 5 tasks, in this way, you can create the menu using the switch state. So it's clear? Now we are moving toward the program, the starting of the program. In matrix class, whatever the object you will created and whatever the function, whatever the choice you will given accordingly, the function will be called. Suppose I have given the choice 1 there, then this function, addition function, will be called here. What is the syntax of method in Java? Method name, set of arguments. Since this is the, we are not passing any argument from the main function. That's why this function method is without any argument. Always this method is returning. Here the method is not returning any value. Close IO exception. Word addition. So suppose I have used choice 1, enter 1. This addition function will be called. In this addition, what I have done, I am taking the various variable I, J. I stands for row, J for column, N stands for row, M for column, P stands for row, Q for column, right? And K is a immediately counter, right? So for addition, two matrices are needed. So I am naming the matrices as A and B. So first of all, we have to determine what should be the size of the matrix. So here system.out.println enter number of elements in row. रो कितने होंगे? 4 एलिमेंट्स होंगे, 4 रोज होंगे या 3 रोज होंगे, वो हमें नंबर देना है. तो थ्रू यूजर इनपुट ob1 of type buffered reader, st1 ob1 dot read line, that is the number of rows. Now you have taken the number of rows. Now elements, enter the number of elements. Column, कितने column होंगे? Again you will give user input for the column. Here ob2 is an object of type buffered reader. Then M will stand for column. So for matrix A, what should be the number of rows and what should be the number of columns? N stands for rows, M stands for column. So for one matrix, you have provided the value to the user. What should be the value of rows and what should be the value of column for matrix A? Clear? It's clear to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If there is any confusion, then you may ask also. Okay. Now, this is the, now for second matrix B, again number of rows and number of columns will be entered. So for here, how many number of rows? This is OB3, not OB1. This will be OB3. Buffered reader, correct कर लीजिएगा. Please correct it. OB3 is equal to new buffered reader, new input reader system.in. That will be the number of rows that will be stored in I. In the same way, second matrix, for second matrix, what should be the number of columns? That will be stored in J. Right? For addition, there is a condition. So within the program, in this program, the condition is that condition I have mentioned, that number of rows of first matrix should be equal to number of columns, number of rows of second matrix, and number of columns of second matrix should be equal to number of first matrix should be equal to number of columns of second matrix. So this condition is that if this condition is satisfied, then only addition is possible. That's why I have given this condition. Number of row of first matrix should be equal to number of row of second matrix, and number of column of first matrix should be equal to number of column of second matrix. Then only condition. So that's why I have given this condition. If that condition, whatever the value of M, N and M and I and J you are entering, that will be computed here. If that is true, then addition program will start. Here, if this condition is true, you will print a matrix message. Matrix can be added. Now you are allocating memory for those matrices. Since these matrices are two-dimensional, so in this way you will declare the two-dimensional array. A is a matrix, first matrix, which is two-dimensional. So in this way, and that will have integer values. So A is a matrix, two-dimensional. The memory will be allocated through new operator int n m. N is the number of row, m is the number of column. In this way, memory will be allocated to this array. For second matrix, the memory is being allocated like this. Int b, it means b is a two-dimensional array. Two big brackets are there. It means it's a two-dimensional array of type integer, and memory is allocated to this. Then third, there is another two-dimensional array C matrix in which the added value of A and will be stored. That's why I have used this two-dimensional array C. So now memory allocation is done for all three two-dimensional arrays. Now, what should be our next task? The next task is that how to enter elements into array A. First, what you did, you declare the size, how many number of rows, how many number of columns in each matrix should be there. That has been done. After that, what you did, condition checked. If condition is satisfied, then you will allocate memory for all three matrices, matrix A and B. You will add both the matrix and the resultant value will be stored in matrix C. So memory allocated for matrices A, B and C. Now what should be the next task? The next task is enter the values into the matrix. So enter elements into array A. For that we will use two for loops. In this statement, for p is equal to 0. P is what? Number of row. Iterator showing the rows. Q is the iterator showing the column. So for p is equal to 0, all the values of Q will be executed. Q should be less than number of column in first matrix. P should be less than number of rows in the first matrix. For p is equal to 0, all the values of Q will be executed. For p is equal to 1, all the values of Q will be executed. P is equal to 2, all the value of Q will be executed. Now, here we have assigned value in for loop. OB5, object is created. There is a string 5. APQ, the value will be stored. Whatever the value user value you will give to the array, that will be stored in PQ. So for P, if P is equal to 0 and Q is 0, so in A00, whatever the value user will give, that will be stored. For P is equal to 0, Q is 1. For in 0, 1, the value will be entered. If P is equal to 0, Q is 2, then in 0, 2, the value will be entered. So both the loop will be continued to execute till the condition satisfied, and you will enter all the values into array A. Right? Now, you are entering the value into array B. In the same manner, here P is an iterator which is showing to row I, Q is an iterator which is showing to row J. So P will start from 0. From 0, all the Q value will be executed. This will be executed again and again for 0 from Q to whatever the value of J. So for 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0, 5. When this condition will false, then Q will be P will be increased. You will come out of this, P will be increased. For 1, again Q 0, second row will be for P is equal to 2, third column will be the value will be entered like this. I hope it's clear to all of you. In both the array, both the matrices, we have entered the values to the user. Now, whatever the value you have entered, that should be displayed on the screen. So the value entered into matrix A will be printed like this. So we have used the same loop here. P is equal to 0, P is less than I, P plus plus system dot out dot print. Right? Whatever the value will be printed, next value printed, that will be printed in the next line. So for P is equal to 0, all the value of Q will be executed. System dot out dot printer A01, A02, 03, 04 will be executed, and all the value will be separated by a tab. This is the escape sequence. I told you in the previous class that escape sequences are used to print the non-printable characters. For example, \n, \t, \r. All these are the escape sequences. So each element of the matrix between there is a space of 8 characters. Then in next row, P is equal to 1, all the values of columns will be displayed. In this manner, entire A matrix will be displayed. In the same manner, the entire B matrix will be displayed. क्या क्या किया? पहले दो मैट्रिक्स ली, उसमें यूजर से आपने नंबर ऑफ रोज एंटर कराया, नंबर ऑफ कॉलम एंटर कराया दोनों मैट्रिक्स के अंदर. उसके बाद आपने कंडीशन चेक कराई मैट्रिक्स की, समेशन किस कंडीशन में पॉसिबल होगा. उसके बाद आपने क्या किया, वैल्यू एंटर की, यूजर से कराई मैट्रिक्स ए और मैट्रिक्स बी दोनों में. कराने के बाद वैल्यू एंटर कराने के बाद आपने उसको प्रिंट किया. अब ए और बी को आपको क्या करना है, ऐड करना है. द वैल्यू विल बी एडेड लाइक दिस. There is another third matrix CPQ in which the value of APQ plus BQPQ will be assigned. I have used two loops. For P is equal to 0, all the values of Q will be executed. C01 is equal to A01 plus B01. C02 is equal to A02 plus B02. C03 is equal to A02 plus B02, like this. Then first row will be over. Then P is equal to 1 will start from 1. C10, the value of Q is 0. A10 plus B10. Now the value of Q will be 1. A C11 is equal to A11 plus B1. So this added value will be stored into the matrix element by element. After this, you will print that added value. Here, the added value is printing again using this two loops in matrix format, and the added value will be printed. Here you are printing the matrix. You are printing the matrix C. Otherwise, if condition is not satisfied, then cannot be added. So in this program, what I discussed that how to create a BINU program. For that, I took the example of matrix. In the matrix, what you have to do, first of all, the number you will have to enter the number of rows, number of columns into the matrix. You can create one matrix, two matrix, three matrix, right? specify the number of rows and number of columns from the user. After that, then whatever the operation you want to perform, for that you must check the condition. Once you have checked the condition, then you apply, you allocate the memory. Once you have allocated the memory, then you enter the values from the user into the matrix, and then you print them, and after that whatever the operation you performed, you will perform, and resultant will be printed. So this was the example of addition. If from the main function we have given the choice 2, then multiply will be executed, because in the main function we have called multiply function if option 2 is given by the user. In the multiplication, what is the logic? Whenever you are multiplying two matrices, so always multiplication is row by column, right? And row by column multiplication, and then value will be added. This is the logic now. I think all of you are comfortable with the matrices, concept of matrices. Any confusion in matrix in multiplication? What you do whenever you multiply two matrices, so always multiplication will be done row by column. For first row of first matrix, all the columns values will be evaluated and then they will be added. Then again for first row, second value of first row, all the columns will be evaluated, then value will be added. That will be the value of 0, 1. In this way, multiply will be the same procedure is there. Here, number of rows in A, number of columns in A. Here it should be A, not B. It should be A. Okay. So in A, number of rows and columns are entered. Enter number of elements columns in B. This should be A. Correct कर लीजिएगा. Now number of rows in B, number of rows in columns in B. Same procedure. Then condition is checked. If number of rows in first matrix is equal to number of rows in second matrix, then multiplication is possible. That condition is defined here. If this is true, then multiplication will start. Now again A and B. You are creating memory for 3 variables. In C, the multiplication of A and B, multiplicated value of A and B will be stored. Enter elements into array A. Again, in the same fashion as in the addition, we have entered the values into matrix A and B. This is for B matrix. This is for A matrix. Now we are printing the elements entered. Now this is the logic for multiplication. Only difference is in logic. There the logic was addition. Here the logic is multiplication. For that we need a third variable and we need to initialize that variable CPQ 0. Loops, 2 loops are there. And since you are doing the addition, you are multiplying row by column, right? Then in addition to that, you are doing the addition also. So for that third loop is also needed. That is K. And within this K, this value will be multiplied like this. CPQ plus APK column of second matrix, PK star BKJ. This is the formula for multiplication, and this is the print of. In this way, the multiplied value will be printed out. Otherwise, if condition is false, cannot be multiplied. So here three loops are there. कैसे चलेंगे? How the loops are here? For p is equal to 0, q 0, then k all value of k will be executed. Then p0, q1, k all the values will be executed. Then p0, q2, k all values are executed for this expression. Then the value of q will be increased. Right? So in this way, the statements will be executed. Now transpose. Transpose is very simple. You will take only one matrix. You will convert rows to column, column to rows, and you will store into another matrix and you will print that matrix. So here we have entered the number of rows in matrix A, number of columns in matrix A, and then here we are allocating memory for two matrices. A is the original matrix, B is the transposed matrix. In this way, you can allocate the memory for A and B matrix. Here you are entering the value into A matrix. You are printing the value of matrix A here. Then in this example, here is the logic. Rows are converting into columns and columns are converting into rows. So in these two loops, the transpose values will be in B matrix will be printed out in matrix form. Now this is the display. Whenever you are calling the display method, again we are number of elements row in matrix A, number of columns in matrix A, then values are being entered. Since we are displaying the only A here, the memory is allocated here. A new int nm. After that, this is you are entering the value, then you are printing the value of matrix A. Now this is the switch statement in the main function from which we are calling this. So today I discussed about the for loop again, variants of for loops, in which single dimensional array, how to declare the single dimensional array, how to initialize the values to single dimensional array, then how to use the two dimensional array, and with example I have demonstrated that how to create the switch menu through the switch statements. Then what is while loop, what is do while loop, what is the difference between the while loop and do while loop, what is the statement difference between the break statement and continue statement, and then what is the return statement, and also discussed various examples. So I hope this is sufficient for today.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Any confusion? Any questions?
सर while और do while में डिफरेंस बता दो एक बार और.
In while, there is a what is the syntax of while loop? While expression set of statements.
Yes, sir.
So first the statement expression value will be evaluated. अगर वो true होगा तभी से statement execute करेगा. Do while में क्या है कि do set of statement expression. तो पहले स्टेटमेंट एग्जीक्यूट होगा, फिर एक्सप्रेशन इवेल्युएट होगा। तो वाइल में शुरू में ही एक्सप्रेशन इवेल्युएट हो जाता है, डू वाइल में बाद में। तो कम से कम एक डू वाइल में कम से कम एक बार तो एग्जीक्यूट होगा ना, और वाइल में क्या होगा, स्टार्टिंग में ही कंडीशन चेक हो जाएगा। तो यही डिफरेंस है।
ओके सर।
Any other questions? Feel free to ask any question regarding the topic or earlier topics also. आवाज नहीं आ रही है।
नहीं।
ये कौन?
No, sir.
क्वेश्चन पूछना है और कुछ पूछना है तो बताओ भाई। ठीक है, then it's okay. हाँ, so please send your attendance very carefully, not like earlier, because whatever the attendance is uploaded by me, once it is uploaded, then it gets locked. Then I will have to get the special permission to update. Right? So while giving the attendance, please take care of it. Okay? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay, it's sufficient for today, and we will meet on the next class. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.